So, this all kicked off one morning when I went to grab my favorite hoodie, the one that's basically my security blanket on chilly days, and, well, it was gone. Like, completely vanished. I shrugged it off at first, figured maybe I tossed it somewhere weird during my late night snack run or something. But then, something felt off. See, I live with Jake, my roommate, and, for the most part, a pretty decent guy. But lately, things started disappearing around our small apartment more than usual. Not just random socks or loose change, but stuff I actually needed. The kind of things you don't just misplace. A charger here, a pair of headphones there. I even noticed my stash of snacks shrinking suspiciously fast, and I'm not someone who shares food without a little warning. At first, I thought maybe Jake was just spacey or forgetting to tell me when he borrowed stuff. You know how some people are? They never mean to sneak around, it's just, well, they forget to ask. I tried to laugh it off, not wanting to make a big deal about a hoodie or a charger. But as the days went by, the missing things kept piling up. It wasn't just one or two items anymore, it was starting to feel like a pattern. That's when the nagging question started gnawing at me. Was Jake really just careless, or was he actually taking my stuff without asking? For some reason, the idea that my best friend and roommate could be sneaking around made me feel a little weird. Not weird like, hey man, chill out, but weird in the gut. A tight, uncomfortable kind of weird that makes you start eyeing your own stuff like it belongs to someone else. I mean, it wasn't like I'd overheard him saying, hey, I'm going to borrow your hoodie for a few days, or mind if I grab your charger? Nope, nada. And I don't know if you've ever been there, but when it feels like someone's slowly emptying your personal space without so much as a heads up, it starts messing with your head. After that morning, I kept finding little things missing or shuffled around. My headphones that I swear I left on the coffee table would be gone. Or I'd open my snack drawer expecting chips and find it suspiciously empty. And every time I asked Jake about it, he'd give me this classic, "What are you talking about?" look, like I was imagining the whole thing. So yeah, that hoodie going MIA wasn't just about losing a comfy piece of clothing. It was the first sign of something off. Something I wasn't ready to unpack yet. I sat there that morning, hoodieless and slightly baffled, wondering if I was overreacting or if I was about to find out just how slippery roommate life could get when your stuff starts disappearing one item at a time. Jake, my roommate, is one of those guys who's pretty easygoing on the surface. Kind of like that friend who can crash on your couch for a week and somehow leave it looking almost untouched, except when it comes to his own space. In the grand scheme of things, he's cool. He's funny, has a laid-back vibe, and generally pays rent on time, which is a win in itself. But he's also, a little careless, if you know what I mean. Not the oops, I spilled coffee on the carpet type careless, but more like the can't seem to remember where I put my keys or that thing you lent me kind. Our apartment is small, basically one living room doubling as a dining area, with 2 bedrooms and a single bathroom cramped into an old building that's seen better days. This place has charm, or so I keep telling myself while I hunt for my missing stuff. Since Jake and I moved in about 6 months ago, I noticed that it felt less like shared living and more like a never-ending scavenger hunt. If one of us needed something, it was like a challenge to find it, except the items tended not to be mine. At first, I tried to write off the missing things as honest mistakes, like that time I couldn't find my favorite mug. I told myself maybe I tossed it somewhere weird during a caffeine-fueled zombie morning. Then the phone charger disappeared. Not the one in the living room, but my personal, special brand charger that I swear I never take anywhere. And it wasn't just the small stuff. One day, my headphones vanished, the ones I used to zone out after work. I'd ask Jake, hoping he'd go, "Oh yeah, man, I grabbed those. Sorry, I'll bring them back." But nope, crickets. Or some variation of, "I haven't seen them," said with the kind of air that made me think he either wasn't telling the whole truth or he genuinely had no clue where my stuff was. And honestly, both possibilities felt equally frustrating. You start to get twitchy. Like the other morning, I opened the snack stash expecting my usual chips, only to get greeted by an alarming emptiness. And I remember thinking, okay, that's probably just Jake being Jake, maybe he grabbed a few chips. But after a while, it felt less like sharing and more like a slow bleed, like he was treating my stuff as public property without the courtesy of a "hey, can I?" or a simple heads up. The worst part? The apartment is so small that my stuff is, well, everywhere. So whenever something disappeared, it was almost guaranteed to be around here somewhere, just relocated by someone else's hands. I can't tell you how many times I opened a drawer or cabinet and found my charger tangled with Jake's cables, or found my hoodie balled up in a pile of his gym clothes. Our friendship was fine at first. I mean, Jake's my friend, so I didn't want to blow this whole thing out of proportion. But days turned into weeks, and each time I found a missing item, it chipped away at the trust we'd built over years. There was this growing tension hanging around, unspoken but thick-like when you know someone's upset but neither of you want to say anything. I started realizing I was getting protective over my things in a way I hadn't expected. I swear I was even caught staring at my own charger like it had some secret value, guarding it like a squirrel hides nuts for winter. And seeing Jake's carefree attitude about it just made me more annoyed. Like, dude, do you even notice what you're taking, or is this all just some accidental borrowing that you don't remember? One night we had Amy over, our mutual friend. She's the kind of person who manages to stay neutral no matter what. We were in the living room just hanging out when I casually brought up the disappearing items. You know, I said, holding up my mysteriously gone t-shirt, it's weird, right? Stuff going missing around here. Amy laughed lightly. Sounds like you need a roommate who keeps a checklist or a security camera. Jake, lounging on the couch, shrugged with that same innocent look he always had. Man, I swear I don't steal stuff, he said with a grin. Maybe it's some ghost or your evil twin. I wanted to laugh back, but instead I just wanted to shake him and say, no, Jake, this isn't a joke, but I didn't. I kept it light, knowing things were already a little fragile. Even with Amy there, it felt like we were all walking on eggshells. Because it wasn't just about missing stuff anymore. It was about respect and boundaries and figuring out how to live with someone without constantly wondering if your own stuff was safe. And, the stakes were getting higher. I wasn't just annoyed anymore, my patience was running thin. That hoodie was just the start. It felt like every little thing missing was a small crack forming in what had been a solid friendship. I guess I didn't want to admit it yet, but I was starting to wonder if Jake and I were heading toward a breaking point. But I didn't know what to do next. Do you just call someone out on taking your stuff without proof? Do you let it slide and hope it stops? Or do you start setting up some kind of weird roommate sting operation? At that moment, all I knew was that living with Jake was becoming more complicated than I'd signed up for. And honestly, I wasn't sure if our friendship was going to survive this borrowed territory. So yeah, things didn't just stay at missing a hoodie or, hey, where's my charger level. It was like every few days something else would quietly vanish or get borrowed without so much as a, yo, can I? And I'm not exaggerating here, the little stuff kept piling up. Laptop charger? Gone. My good headphones? Also gone. Snacks? Well, they disappeared so fast, I started suspecting the snack drawer had a black hole in it. I tried, a couple of subtle rounds of, hey man, you've seen my stuff, right? Conversations. You know, the kind where you don't want to sound like you're spying, but you're definitely eyeballing his every move. The first few times, Jake just had this innocent, almost sheepish grin like he'd just misplaced his own keys, not stolen my things. Ah man, I thought that was mine, or, no, I haven't seen your charger, he'd say, with that classic, clueless tone that made me question if I was going insane. But then, it got awkward. One afternoon, I was back in the living room working on my laptop when I looked up to see Jake slipping out with my headphones hanging around his neck like it was the latest fashion accessory. My brain literally froze for a second. I mean, I wasn't gonna shout, dude, those are mine, right there and then, but it was like watching a magician reveal the trick, except way less impressive. He caught my eye and just gave that half smile, that oops, busted kind of look. For a split second, it felt like the air was charged with discomfort. I tried to play it cool and said something like, hey, those aren't yours, just FYI. But Jake just shrugged and mumbled, yeah, I know, but I forgot my headphones. And that was it. The classic excuse. I didn't even know whether to laugh or feel more annoyed. It wasn't like it was a one-time slip-up anymore. It was starting to feel like a pattern, and honestly, the pattern was wearing me thin. After that, I found myself doing some real thinking. How do you deal with a friend who steals your stuff but smiles through it like it's no big deal? Every time I thought about calling him out directly, I'd picture the awkward distance it might create between us. Because, yeah, Jake's a good guy, or at least he was. This wasn't some revenge thriller, it was freaking laundry room level petty stuff. But still, it scratched at the edges of trust. There was this night when I decided to test the waters a little more. I caught Jake mid-borrowing again. He was rummaging through my jacket pocket like it was a communal treasure chest. He junked when I cleared my throat. I'm seriously starting to think you just walk around with your hands in my pockets like it's a habit, I joked, trying to keep the mood light but with an edge. Jake paused, looked up, and said, man, I just forget, all right? It's not like I'm trying to be a jerk. That hit me differently. Because it was true, he wasn't doing this to be malicious, but forgetfulness or not, it still stung. I mean, how many times can you accidentally borrow someone's stuff before it stops feeling like an accident? At this point, our apartment didn't feel like home. It felt like a minefield of possibility. Is this mine? Is that his? I didn't want to live like I had to double-check everything, but every disappearing item made me more guarded. Still, the friendship part was the toughest. I kept debating whether to just push it under the rug and hope Jake got the hint, or to lay all my cards on the table and risk making things awkward between us. Because, yeah, punching the let's talk about boundaries button felt like stepping into an emotional war zone neither of us wanted to enter. And yet, despite all that, I found myself watching Jake differently. It was like seeing my best friend in a new light. That mix of frustration, disappointment, and a little bit of sadness tugged at me. Could I fix this without tearing us apart? or was the borrowing going to become a permanent crack in our friendship? One evening, after yet another missing snack ambush, I sat on the couch and thought, maybe it was time to stop guessing and start figuring out a way forward. But how? Well, I was definitely going to need a plan that didn't involve turning our apartment into some kind of weird spy zone. At least, not yet. So, I finally decided to set up a little experiment, if you will, to catch Jake in the act without making it super obvious. I wasn't sure what I was expecting. Maybe a quick, "Hey man, I took your charger" moment, or an epic denial followed by a sheepish apology. Something to put an end to the mystery and maybe salvage what was left of my patience. I grabbed one of my less useful pairs of headphones, the kind I never really got attached to, kind of like the headphones version of a decoy sock. I carefully hid them in plain sight but rigged the cord so it was easier to spot if someone picked them up. Then, I just waited. It didn't take long, within a day or two, there was Jake, nonchalantly strolling through the living room with those exact headphones dangling around his neck. He didn't realize the setup, didn't know I was watching. When I called him out gently, he froze for a second, and instead of his usual shrug or clueless stare, he finally looked a bit caught. That night, I sat Jake down in the kitchen, which had been the unofficial negotiation table for many roommate debates before, and I just laid it out. No blame, no anger, just me saying, "Hey man, I know you've been borrowing my stuff without really asking. I caught you. Can we just talk about what's going on?" And what he said surprised me. Jake sighed, ran a hand through his hair, and said, "Look, I didn't really mean to make you feel like I was stealing or anything. It's just, I've been in a weird spot lately. Stuff's been stressful with work, family, and honestly some stuff I haven't shared with you. I guess I didn't think twice because it was easier than explaining all that. Honestly, I didn't see that coming." Jake, Mr. Carefree, was going through his own storm, and this borrowing thing, it was his clumsy way of dealing with feeling off balance. His explanation didn't instantly erase the irritation I'd felt, but it put a new lens on the whole mess. We talked for a while, awkward but real, about boundaries, respect, and how sometimes friendship means having those uncomfortable conversations. Jake promised he'd be more mindful about asking first and respecting my space. I promised to be more upfront instead of building silent walls. It wasn't a dramatic Hollywood makeover moment, but it felt like the start of an understanding. The thing is, from that night on, roommate life didn't snap back to perfect. We still had little spats because, hey, living with someone means dealing with quirks and missteps. But there was a clearer respect, a bit more honesty, and fewer things mysteriously vanishing around the apartment. Looking back, I realize how messy friendships can be when boundaries get blurred, especially when it's someone you care about. It's not just about stuff disappearing, it's about feeling secure, respected, and seen. And maybe, just maybe, we all take a few wrong turns trying to navigate that. So, yeah, I guess that's my story. The hoodie, the chargers, the snacks, they weren't just things. They were signs pointing to a bigger conversation we needed to have. I'm curious, have you ever had a friend or roommate cross a line like that? How'd you deal with it? Because honestly, sometimes the stuff that goes missing says way more about the people involved than about the stuff itself.